All right, welcome to another Joel Buchelman YouTube tutorial. I just want to go over this real quick. One of my first tutorials I ever posted was a couple weeks ago for the 8-point material design grid template thing for Design Inc. And I was really blown away. I knew that it would be useful for some people, but everything I said was kind of just regurgitated from the material design guidelines from Google, and I think just hearing someone's workflow from their personal perspective was very valuable. I put up this sketch file for people to download and was blown away just at how many people were pumped on this and said thank you. And so for me, that's like 100% an indicator that this is what people enjoy and like. The video did pretty well and I got a lot of good feedback. So I've created this new playlist on my channel called Tutorials and Tech Reviews. I like to do kind of unboxing techie stuff too, so I'm going to do that just for fun. But also going to do a lot more design tutorials that are separate from the vlog. I might sprinkle some of this in the vlog, but really want to keep the super technical stuff outside of the weekly vlogs. To say the least, I wanted to do another one this week. So I tweeted this out, and I wanted to see what designers wanted to hear since I'm kind of doing it for them. And a couple people, Aiden Runner said, it'd be good to hear your approach for whiteboarding and collaborating. Oleg Steerbu? Sorry about the name, Oleg. But as it said, a quick process overview of how you handle design tasks like Sketchwire, UI, QA. I've done a video on how I whiteboard in one of my vlogs. I can link that and put it here. But I wanted to dive into more of the thought process and less about the tools, because I feel like it's very easy for us as designers to get focused on the tool rather than the process. I don't think tools really mean shit. It's all about how you think, how you process, how you organize your thoughts, and how you execute against those efficiently. I've created kind of a workflow that's worked very well for me since being at Netflix. I kind of just ripped it off from my buddy Ted Boda, and it's nothing unique. But I'll show you, kind of let you into my head a little bit and how I ebb and flow every day here at Design Inc. So first off, as I always whiteboard, it's where I always start usually if it's a bigger problem. But that's very vague to say that you whiteboard. I'm very orderly and very organized and intentional about how I whiteboard, because I take photos of all of these things, and it's my point of reference for all of the thought process and all the brainstorming that went on with me and Mark or whoever else I'm working with. So I'm going to dive into kind of technically how I do this and just the simple tools that I use. I take all my photos with an iPhone. The resolution is great. You can see all the detail there. They do this all the time at Google. And what I do is I sync all my photos on my phone to Google Photos, which has unlimited free backup. And the nice thing is I can literally go into search and just search whiteboards. The amazing thing is this actually works. It pulls up all my whiteboards, and I have, if you look here, like whiteboards going all the way back to my early days at Google, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to jump into this one on November 7th. This is a whiteboard kind of outlining the structure and feature set of our current model of an introduction-based kind of lead generation model for Design Inc. I'm going to walk you through this board and kind of why it's structured and how the different sections of it and why I do it the way I do, and then the sketch file and how it kind of manifests itself in Sketch. I usually start with, Mark said yesterday, I love it when you say information architecture, but it really is. I like to outline hierarchy as far as what contains what, as far as digital components or different parts of the application or feature. And then also like priority, what needs to happen in these experiences, what is essential, so making sure that we don't put too many things into the UI or in the software. I have this here labeled pretty simply as needs. I have rough, loose users. I have like the user and the designer or the talent. In our case, we have people coming in as the user, as the people looking for creative help, and then the designer, the talent, the photographer, the animator that's helping them with their project. And so I have just kind of the tasks, the things that need to happen, like they need to send a project, they need to get notified of quotes or proposals, they need to respond in message, they need to be able to accept a job, the designer needs to create a profile, put in their skills and tools, get notified of projects, easily quote with a tool. These are all things, if you're using Design Inc. or know what we're doing, you're aware of, but this is just the very simple things that you need to do within the application. I do little like visual things, like these are a priority, these secondary things are just ideas that I wanted to highlight. And then over here, I actually color code quite a bit when I do whiteboarding, mainly so that I can have an understanding of more complex flows or different statefulness through flows. So here I have like red signifying the onboard or the sales funnel, and then blue is a dashboard and tools. Once again, now that I've outlined like the user and the talent, I kind of have these two columns in the whiteboard, and I'm outlining in red like the onboarding side. So both of these users onboard through a process. And a lot of these things I'm just kind of hand waving to. I know I'll dig into them deeper in Sketch, and you'll see that later. But really, I'm saying, the user is going to go through some sort of project wizard to create a project, and then some sort of account creation, which will go into, an actual dashboard and tool. The talent, there's an existing talent, someone that's already on the platform, someone that's new. They have different flows. They have their own wizard and their own dashboard and education. So this is me like showing the real sections of the app that I need to focus on and dig into deeper. But this is like way zoomed out, trying to understand everything that we need to build so that I can estimate timelines and milestones with engineering and our founders. So I have this onboarding red area, then I have this blue tool dashboard area once the things are created, the people are on our platform. None of this is very detailed from a wireframe perspective, but it's very intentional as far as the actions that we need to take. So you'll see like a project summary here. You can approve that, decline it, or message. These are all different paths that divert, that have a lot of statefulness and important things to consider in the experience. So I'm kind of outlining all the different states. So you go from a summary to a payment, onboarding into the back end, accepting the life cycle of these projects. This is kind of a high level of how I whiteboard, but just to be clear, like this outlines a good month, 2 month of work, and also helps me prioritize and review with the other stakeholders to understand what we should do and what is or isn't in line with what we've talked about. So all of this is showing like parents and child. So this is an account. Account has this, and this. Status of a project has this, and this. And I think from a UI standpoint, it's very easy to understand, okay, now we have this thing called a message. Now we have this thing called a project. And I have to design the visual states and instances that exist within the app, which allows you to create a nice visual language and making sure you're compensating for all of the states and paths through the UX. So that's kind of how I whiteboard. I do this for every project. And it's also good to know that like this doesn't have to be a whiteboard. It could be a sketch file. It could be any way that you prefer to get ideas out quickly. The whole point is to not get too detailed. So I'm not trying to say you need a whiteboard. This is just how I do it. After I whiteboard, I usually jump into Sketch, and that's where I get started. Obviously, if you watch my other video, we already have a GUI, which is our all of our interface in one spot. So it's very easy to take that and jump into actually drawing screens. I'm not going to dive too much into the screens themselves, but I want to show you kind of how I structure my sketch file and how I relate it back to my brainstorming so that I'm organized. A lot of designers aren't as orderly or structured. For me, it keeps me sane. So you see here, I have different pages for different parts of the application, which you saw me outline in the whiteboard. So I have everything regarding the request that the user signs, everything regarding what the proposal is, which the talent sends, everything that has to do with credits and purchasing, everything that has to do with messaging and wizards. So I organize these sketch files, artboards like you normally would expect. I like to put these big title slides in here that help me understand and organize what we're looking at. And these are also nice when you export them into a prototyping software or into when you're sharing with engineering. It's nice to have some leads of letting them know what's going on. We'll just look at this, for example, for requests. This is like submitting a request. So they're starting on the home page, going through our form, showing some statefulness through the fields, showing a success state. I've also fleshed that out on desktop since it's considerably different for our engineers. There's some statefulness for some forms down here. I dribbled about this a while ago, but showing progress of creating a proposal. Then if you go into requests, I show requests of approval. So this is on the other side, a different user where now, so here I show like the approval of a request. So a request is sent, and what does that look like when a user approves a designer? So they can look into a request they sent, go into the proposals they received, and how do they accept that. This is how you accept a proposal from your request from email. So these are all things like statefulness that you need to consider in your flows. This is obviously specific to Design Inc., but regardless of what your app is, if you're in a mobile desktop, multiple user world, there's never one flow. There's many flows, And that's why I think it's good to step back on the whiteboard, look at everything that you're doing, and then segment these things out. If you get too involved in one flow, your engineer is going to hit other flows and be confused. And I definitely don't have all the foresight seeing all of this. The engineers help me a lot talking through these things. But you see, here's requests. Then I have proposals, same damn thing. Proposal submission, mobile and desktop. So credits, I show kind of the whole purchasing flow on our platform. Designers by credits, and they're able to propose different users and requests based on that. And then there's messaging. Messaging is a core part of our platform where designers can talk to the different people coming in that need services. And so there's lots of ways that those people talk through email, through the back end, and through notifications. So showing some of those flows here. Once again, I'm kind of organizing these by the use case and how the user or the designer come into our platform, how they interact, and showing statefulness. This all seems very generic and normal for me. The reason I'm sharing this in tutorial form is because I think the main thing I want to say is that here I'm using obviously a whiteboard and sketch, and those things are important and enable us to do what we do. I think the most important thing to understand is that the thought process and the exploration and the outlining of the ideas and features, flows, users, all those components, making sure that you fully understand the problem and that you have a strategy or at least a plan to get after that in your design tools, that's where I think the magic happens. We've at Designing been talking a lot with different creatives and freelancers, realizing that I think as designers it's very easy for us to focus on structure and process. It's good to have those things, but no project is the same. Everything always evolves and is fluid. And so finding the right process and the right structure is never going to make everything work okay. And so I think you can focus on tools, you can focus on the way you do things. Really what I think separates good designers from great designers is their ability to deal with the change and be fluid, and also think really deeply about problems. I think it's very easy to kind of throw a problem into a structure and try and go through the process. Be nimble and efficient is important. I think that's probably the second point of my flow. The reason that I spend so much time being orderly and thoughtful with my whiteboard is that it gives me a higher confidence that when I jump into Sketch, I can actually execute and know that what I'm drawing on screen and designing is the right thing, or at least going in the right direction. If you don't spend enough time on a sketch pad or in discussion with people or on a whiteboard, really looking at the depth of the problem, so not just like here's a set of features we want to design, who are all the users involved with that feature, what are all the states and potential dead ends of those features, where are all these features showing up, whether in email notifications, phone, tablet, desktop. I think those are really the core things that get solved on a whiteboard, not in Sketch. And obviously the biggest thing is that when you're doing them on a whiteboard, you can quickly iterate, change your mind, explore many ideas very visually all in one space, whereas doing that in Sketch, you could potentially be going down a rabbit hole and spend many, many days designing and potentially designing the wrong thing. That's that. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to dig in this more and answer any questions you guys have. I'm probably going to write a little Medium post to put this video in as well, so that there's some written format to accommodate the video content. So kind of three big takeaways. One, tools are shit. It doesn't really matter what you use. It's all about your process and making sure that you're thinking deeply about the problem and understanding the depth of what you're trying to solve through design. Two, be efficient. Make sure that you have all those problems outlined on a whiteboard or in that early process and brainstorming process. Make sure you have alignment and that you understand the full problem before you jump into the actual pixels and details. So number three, you need to be nimble. Having this structure that I'm talking about is important in that it allows you to have a framework to think about design problems and move through them, but it's definitely not the end-all be-all. You have to be nimble, look at each problem specifically, and tackle it in whatever way seems appropriate. Some might require more user research, some might be doing more interviews with stakeholders or other leaders, be it your CEO or industry professional. But regardless, you should really do a lot of thinking, brainstorming, and understanding the full problem before you jump in. And that's probably the core of this. It's not about your tools. It's not about using the latest technology or a grid system. It's really about thinking deeply about the problem, finding a solution, and then executing against it. It's easy to start executing, but I think there's a lot of process and a lot of thinking that designers skip over. And that, in the end, is one, not going to solve the problem. Two, it's going to take a lot longer And that's a hard thing to deal with when you're trying to be efficient with clients or with your product team. Hope that's useful. If it is, please let me know. Like, subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to comment here in Medium or also in the YouTube channel if you're on YouTube. If you have anything you want me to talk about, let me know. I'd be glad to dive in. Thanks, guys.